And so then see, America, the Bush senior government actually wanted to uphold the Soviet Union, to prolong the Soviet Union and protect it.
Wait, what?
Yeah, because see, what they wanted to do was dissolve the Warsaw Pact. They wanted to let the satellite countries go free. And as far as the Soviet republics, they wanted the Baltics to go free. Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. But
HW wanted
HW wanted for the USSR to remain under what was going to be called the New Union Treaty. And it was going to include Belarus, Ukraine, and the stands in South Asia still. And what happened was the commies, the hardliners, did a coup in August of 1991, which failed. And to his credit, Bush Sr. refused to take a phone call from the commie and would only take a phone call from Gorbachev. So the coup failed. That wasn't why, but that was part of why the coup failed. But it was really Boris Yeltsin, who was the president of Russia, and he led the people who crushed the coup and saved Gorbachev. But then he did his own coup, and he went ahead and overthrew what was left of the USSR at all himself by making a secret deal with the leader of Belarus and Ukraine and agreeing to break the last thing apart. The USA had nothing to do with that and did not want that. As Brent Scowcroft says, we didn't want Ukraine. We just wanted Eastern Europe. Ukraine is east of Eastern Europe, to Brent Scowcroft, Bush Sr.'s alter ego here. And not that I'm taking his side, but I'm just saying you can see why they didn't want that kind of trouble. They didn't necessarily want the USSR to dissolve. They just wanted for Poland and Hungary and the Baltics to go free.
Did you know that 1 in 8 Americans are currently prescribed anti-anxiety medications? It is a quiet epidemic that is sweeping the West right now. And people who start on these medications have a very hard time quitting. Recovering from benzodiazepine addiction or alcohol addiction is essentially like recovering from brain damage. But what if I told you that a legal mushroom that has been weirdly embedded into our culture is helping people to finally get off these GABAergic substances? I'm talking about Amanita muscaria, the little red top mushroom with the white dots that's depicted in Alice in Wonderland and Mario. This is a legal mushroom to buy, possess, and sell in every state except Louisiana. And thousands of people are using it to get off benzodiazepines and alcohol. This mushroom isn't only for people looking to quit their anti-anxiety medications. People are tapping into its power as a natural nootropic for focus during studies and work, a non-addictive alcohol replacement at parties, a dream-enhancing tool for vivid nights, and even a gentle aid for pain recovery. Amanita can do a lot more than help you quit GABAergics, and it's been hiding in plain sight this whole time. For years, there was a massive gap in the market where nobody in the United States was reliably importing this mushroom. That's where Minnesota Nice comes in, providing you with the highest quality raw Amanita and consumer-ready Amanita products at a price that you can afford. So use Minnesota Nice to help find your harmony today, and go to www.mnniceethno.com/Julian. That link is in my description below, and use code JD22 for 22% off your first order. That's www.mnniceethno.com/Julian, link in description below, and use code JD22 for 22% off. Much love. Interesting. So you're effectively saying they wanted a halfer of what they got.
Yeah, it went
That's
further
not
than they had
well-known
intended.
history.
I
didn't know that at all.
The book is called Provoked, How Washington Started the New Cold War with Russia and the Catastrophe in Ukraine, and it's all in there for you.
Interesting.
In fact, your audience might be familiar with what was called the Chicken Kiev speech, and this is where Bush Sr. went to Kiev and he gave a speech to the Rada where he said independence is not the same as freedom. And America will not support you moving on any timetable other than what Gorbachev has in mind in Moscow. And so don't come looking to me to help you declare independence from them. He said it to their parliament.
All right, question.
And then he said, and beware of ethnic nationalism and the danger of suicidal ethnic nationalism and the horror it can bring to your country like before, et cetera.
That didn't work out too well.
And then it was William Safire, who I don't think was actually a neoconservative, but he was very close to the neoconservatives, who wrote for the New York Times, who called it the Chicken Kiev speech, which you got to admit, like, here's your chance to destroy the USSR once and for all. And they're like doing everything they can to prop it up. I'm not taking their side and thing. I mean, I would have had a total non-interventionist policy, and it would have happened, And in fact, Bush Sr. deserves some credit because, as he put it, he did not go tap dance on the Berlin Wall and say, ha, 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 we won and you lost. Because if he had done that, that would have helped the hardliners.
Yes.
That would have saved the Soviet Union. The fact that he stayed home and played it relatively cool, at least in terms of the gloating, actually made it easier for Yeltsin to ultimately destroy what was left of the USSR for us.
That's my question. That's what I'm thinking as you're explaining this whole thing. And this is a little bit of, I'm not well versed on this part, so I appreciate you going through this. But H.W. Bush is a lifelong spy. You're talking about a guy who literally made his bones on subversive tactics. Could it not have been some sort of, passive aggressive, double speak, reverse psychology in a way?
No.
For him to do that? You don't think that's a possibility?
No, look, Gorbachev wanted the New Union Treaty. Bush's position was, I want what Gorbachev wants. That's it. It was Yeltsin who overthrew Gorbachev, and I never seen any indication anywhere that the CIA put him up to it or anything like that. That was Yeltsin taking his chance. That was not America's doing. The CIA didn't even know the Soviet Union was falling apart because the CIA was too busy lying that they were 12 feet tall so they could justify American militarism. Robert Gates was the head of the CIA at the time, and they missed this whole thing. And even as it was all unraveling, they still were not saying that, oh, yeah, their days are numbered, sir, until it was all over. And they're like, well, red flag is down. Hooray. Yeah, we did it. Right? Like the FBI taking credit when some guy's dad turns him in. We found him. In the parking lot. Yeah.
I'll see you in Valhalla, brother. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Do you... When you look at the history of CIA, something that's born after World War II, but effectively was born as the OSS, during World War II, all those figures eventually created what we now know as CIA. It is quite obvious that there is scandal after scandal, overstep after overstep, bureaucracy taking control of the will of the people, and holding... I mean, you could even go just straight up and say holding blackmail or whatever you want to say over the people that we supposedly elect into power. Is there anything good about the CIA in your book? Are there things that they do on a daily basis that you think are useful?
There must be some pat answer in there, right, about how they read foreign newspapers and tell the president what they say. Maybe they have some electronic spying or some sources somewhere that give them some insight. But, overall, by and large, no, they are absolutely the destructive force that you describe them to be. And why? Because it's unaccountable power. They got a black budget, and they can never get in trouble for anything. By definition, their job is to break the law. That's what a finding is. It's an order by the president to do something.
That's right.
And it can be as illegal as hell. And so... they're a post-constitutional national security bureaucracy fit for an old world empire, not a constitutional republic at all.
A post-constitutional, what was that phrase? Post-constitutional?
A national security bureaucracy, right? Like the rest of them. There are a bunch of them, yeah. All this stuff was invented after World War II, which goes to show that it ain't part of what was the American system up until it was and doesn't have to be,
So you think it's... Well, it's kind of obvious when I say this. Of course it's different. But like the premise of having an apparatus like that, assuming for a second it's not completely taking advantage of everything, which it is. But the premise of having like a spy apparatus is an American when, we won the Revolutionary War because of our spy apparatus. I would argue that was probably the most important thing.
But see, here's the thing. If we renounce all our power, then the foreign spies don't have much business to accomplish here. Right? The whole point of a foreign spy in America is to bend the American government to their will to exercise their global imperial power in favor of whatever government. But if we don't have a world empire, then they're just barking up the wrong tree. I'm saying let's be the wrong tree.
So you think
America itself is safe. We have 2 weekend-friendly neighbors and marine life to the east. Yeah, Canada and Mexico could never threaten us ever. We have threatened them numerous times, but never vice versa, right? You count Pancho Villa's raids or something.
I don't know
Okay.
if I would characterize Mexico as fully friendly, just to be fair. I
Well-
mean, it's run by cartels. Let's
Okay,
be
but
honest.
fine. But I'm just saying their military force has no intention to cross our borders in a violent way in the next couple of hundred
Fair.
years that we got to worry about, right? We got gigantic oceans, east and west. And as Ron Paul said, we could defend this country with a couple of good submarines. That's enough to sink your Navy if you want to come anywhere near our guys. And it's enough. One sub can hold 200 H-bombs. That's enough to kill all of Russia with just one of our submarines. So we can hold the entire world hostage. Don't anybody ever nuke us or we will nuke you. And maybe that's hyperbole. A couple of good submarines, fine. A dozen then. Well, like, what do you want from me? Like, we don't need a world empire to secure North America. And who framed Donald Trump for treason? The CIA and the FBI counterintelligence division. Why do we have a CIA and a counterintelligence division?
To not do that.
Because we're a world empire. And so we need a CIA and an FBI counterintelligence division. And then when the people vote wrong, they just do a coup the same way they do anywhere else. I mean, look at the way that they framed Trump for treason, essentially with the same thing they did to Saddam Hussein.
Same thing.
Yeah, just tell 1,000 lies. The Russiagate hoax, not one word of that was true, not one word of it.
That's been proven.
10,000 accusations. It's the exact same thing they did to Saddam Hussein. Then in 2020, they did it just like they would do like the Orange Revolution or the Rose Revolution when they're overthrowing a friendly government to Russia in their near abroad. And they treated Trump just like he was Yanukovych in that case. You know what I mean? Where the CIA, when Dianne Feinstein, the senior senator from California, was the chair of the
Torture committee?
The Senate Intelligence Committee. Yep. She had her staff investigate torture. Mm-hmm. I guess you already know this story and you know where I'm going. She said, it's a good one though. She had her staff, they were ensconced in an office at CIA where CIA would bring them the material to review. Now, someone at CIA, either accidentally or accidentally on purpose, gave the staff the real secret torture report that was written eyes only for Leon Panetta, which they were supposed to have covered up and lied and pretended didn't exist, and only give them another separate, not even a redacted version, but another whole separate different report. And then when the bosses found out about it, was John Brennan who found out about it. And
Great guy. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah, don't get me started on the whole list, or you can if you want, get me started on the whole list, but he then made a criminal referral to the FBI to have the FBI and the Justice Department prosecute Dianne Feinstein's staff for, he claimed, breaking into their computers and stealing this document. Right. So this is the head of the CIA is coming at the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee in this way, as though he is the separate and co-equal branch of government from the checks and balances we were talking about earlier, when no, I mean, come on, man. He's supposed to be 5 ranks down. He's not even officially a member of the cabinet, the head of the CIA, I guess sometimes, depending on the president, but he's not a secretary of anything.
Hey guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It's a huge, huge help. Thank you.
And even if he was, he's a huge step down from the elected president of the United States of America.
That's right.
And in this case, the courts had ruled that the president had no right to keep this information from her and better turn it over. So in other words, she had all the authority in the world to do what she was doing. And he was swinging and punching way above what should have been his weight, but in fact, no. And he absolutely got away with it.
That's what he's always done.
That's right.
You look at that guy's career, he's done it every fucking step of the way.
Yep.
Even when he wasn't in charge of CIA, long before that, when he was, when he was back running the I'm gonna fuck it up, but he was like the station chief down in the Philippines or something. Like everywhere that guy went, and John Kiriakou, who's a friend of mine who's been in here, who got fucked right up the ass by him.
He's great.
You know, John lays out exactly what this guy was all about. He also explains how the dude was like literally fired and then found his way back in and basically like sucked enough dick to get back into some positions to be able to move papers around.
So
and
I don't know the Philippines part.
You see, I don't remember if it's, please check me in the comments on that. He was the station chief of something out there.
Saudi, I know that.
Saudi, that's it.
Yeah, and this is in Tucker Carlson's new thing about 9/11. He was a station chief in Saudi when the hijackers were all the last of the muscle hijackers of being, brought into the country.
Yep.
Knows nothing about that. And then, yes, he ran the drone wars for Barack Obama before then running the war for Al-Qaeda in Syria, that backing al-Nusra that led to the rise of ISIS and the Islamic State Caliphate. And then, of course, he framed Trump for high treason with Moscow and the overthrow of the election in 2016. Mm-hmm. Total lie. I'm trying to remember if, did Kiriakou say if he was involved in the torture program? I bet he was. I forgot now.
Oh, yeah.
Brennan's role in torture.
This is the sickest part. There was a documentary on Showtime back in 2015 called CIA Spies in the Crosshairs. And they interviewed every living former director or acting director of CIA. At the time, H.W. was still alive. Like, they had everybody on there. And then they had a few guys from the War on Terror who weren't, like heads, but like a Jose Rodriguez, guys like that who were involved in some of the black site programs and things. And so John Brennan, at the time of the documentary, is the head of the CIA, the current head of the CIA at the time. And he gets on there and they're asking each CIA director about, in hindsight, do you think the CIA should ever be allowed to torture somebody? And John Brennan gives like this answer, like, I just think, in America, we should... I just feel very strongly we should not torture. He's the fucking guy who wrote the initial memos. He's the guy who helped create the fucking program. He's not the only one, by the way, on that. But I'm saying, like, he is one of the godfathers of that whole program. He's one of the people who had John Kiriakou prosecuted because he was the only guy back there, the human rights guy, who said, we don't do this in America. He was like, fuck you, John. And they made Eric Holder, the whole thing's like illegal, go after him for it. So when I see a guy, that's on record. When I see a guy like that go onto a documentary and lie his fucking face off, I understand if you got to lie about some foreign intelligence somewhere, listen, that is what it is. But when you're going to lie about your own actions and try to make yourself look like, oh, I'm the righteous guy here, fuck you. I don't fuck with that one bit.
Yep. Yeah. And he was... I think he was in the White House in charge of the drone strikes when they killed American citizens, Anwar al-Awlaki and his son Abdul Rahman in Yemen as well.
That's right.
So, I mean, that's the least of what they did in Yemen, but it's
the least of what they did?
Yeah. Oh, by far. I'll tell you all about that in one moment. But in this case, it ain't a technicality when you're talking about murdering American-born American citizens,
that's right.
Man. And that's absolutely, life in prison time. Anybody else does it just because it's one or two or three. That doesn't make a difference when it comes to that principle. Jesus Christ. Like, there's got to be a line somewhere, and we crossed it a long time ago. They did. But you want to know the story of the Yemen war? I'll tell you real quick. So,
you don't have to tell me quick. Tell me whatever you want.
I'll tell you slow. So, look, Barack Obama comes in. We're way ahead in our timeline, but we don't have to do one.
It's all right. You'll be back, Scott.
We'll just talk about this one. So, and this is in that book, if you want to show them.
Right up enough on screen here. Enough already.
This is the second to the last chapter.
Scott Horton story.
Yeah. Enough already, Horton. We heard ya. We said this part before. Okay. So, W. Bush's Iraq war really benefits Al-Qaeda a lot. It wasn't meant to do that, but it did. They really gained a lot for fighting in Western Iraq. Obama comes in and he decides on, a whole cascade of idiotic things. But one of the things that, at least on the face of it, seemed rational not to a non-interventionist like me, but just on the face of it, all other things being equal, was he told CIA, I want you to focus on actually killing actual ass bin Ladenites, right? Not random Sunni insurgents in Western Iraq, but real friends of Osama who are a threat to us, and particularly in Pakistan and in Yemen. So they did that. Kiriakou tells a story that he knows for a fact, there were only 29 Al-Qaeda guys hiding out in Pakistan at the time that the CIA launched that drone war when Obama came in. And they killed hundreds or low thousands of Pakistanis in those drone strikes, trying to kill 29 guys. Then they also allied with the Pakistani government in a giant war that they launched against the Pakistani Taliban, who never did anything to us, in the Swat Valley and the federally administered tribal territories and all that. Something like 80,000 people were killed and, hundreds of thousands driven from their homes. And it was a giant catastrophe. Anyway, that's what happens when Obama says, what would make sense would be murdering people who actually are friends of Osama, right? And they're like, okay, here's how we do that and turn this country upside down, right? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, when it comes to Yemen, there are bin Ladenites there, real ass bin Ladenites. You'll remember that in fact, this was after Obama already started bombing them. But on Christmas Day, 2009, the underpants bomber tried to blow up a plane over Detroit. Yep. What was AQAP that sent him, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, Yemenite bin Ladenites, and Yemeni bin Ladenites. So they were centered in a couple of small towns on the coast, basically. Not too many of them. CIA begins this drone war against them. The whole time they're bombing them, this is in 2009, is when this starts, like in the fall of 2009. The whole time they're bombing them, Al-Qaeda's getting bigger and bigger. There's a great article by Jeremy Scahill in The Nation about this. Has the word backfires in it. Yemen terror war backfires, something like that. And he talks about in there how there was this tribal chief, whatever alpha male guy of this town who had called a meeting with these bin Ladenites to tell them, you better stay the hell out of my town. And Obama bombed the meeting and killed the guy who was putting a brake on these guys.
Why did he do that?
Because he's an idiot. The CIA, they're bombing little black and white figures on a monitor. They don't know who's who and who's saying what to who down there. They're taking a wild guess. They call it a scalpel. It's not a scalpel. It's a 50, at minimum, it's a 50-pound bomb. A lot of times it's bigger than that. But if it's, a small drone-fired bomb, it's still enough to kill 5 people or blow up a pickup truck. That's not a scalpel, right? Yeah. And a 500-pound bomb will blow up your whole damn building and kill the family,
Yeah, when Eric Prince was here, he was whipping out his phone and showing me some of the live drone strikes. That shit's gnarly.
Yeah. And so, it is not at all a scalpel if it hits you. And so when you have these drone strikes on these towns, then what ends up happening is it ends up driving people into the insurgency. Whoever's bombing us, we want to join up with the people who are getting bombed. Not because, we want to be bombed, but because we want to be part of the force that's worth bombing. We want to be part of the force that's fighting against the people who are fighting us. Yes. It's the same thing that you and I would do if they started bombing our towns. We're going to join up with the guys who already have their guns and their act together and tell them, who do I shoot, right? That's what we do. So that was what they did. And Al-Qaeda just grew more and more and more, okay? Then, in order to accomplish all of that, though, Obama had to bribe the dictator of Yemen, a guy named Abdullah Saleh. And
he had to bribe him.
Yes, with money and guns.
Oh, well, that's how you do it.
Yeah. And so this guy had been the dictator since the end of the Cold War era, and he had reunited North and South Yemen. And the South was the more, commie backed by the Soviets, and the North was the British readout. And so he had united the country, and America had backed him all this time. But now he's a pretty slick double game playing type of guy. So he's allowing Obama to bomb Al-Qaeda, but he's actually backing them and the Muslim Brotherhood, a group called Al-Islah. And he's using them to attack his enemies, a group of Shiites in the north of the country called the Houthis, which that's their family and tribal name, but they're a sect of Zaydi Shiites from the mountainous north in the Sadi province. And he keeps attacking them over and over. And he's using, even though he's taken our money and guns to allow Obama to bomb al-Qaeda, he's actually backing al-Qaeda as long as they're killing the Houthis. But then, what's funny about that is he's actually backing the Houthis to kill his own army and the al-Qaeda guys too.
Yeah.
Because that's how they do politics in Yemen. I talked to a reporter one time. He said, that's the reason why they have those curved daggers, is so you can stab somebody in the back even when he's standing behind you. And so
sounds like an awesome place.
Yeah. So that was the way Saleh did business anyway.
Yeah.
So then comes the Arab Spring, right?
2011.
The degree to which NED and CIA are behind all of this, or some of it, or whichever, let's leave that aside. But revolution breaks out in Tunisia and Egypt, and then you have Day of Rage protests all across the Middle East, including in Bahrain and Saudi and Iraq and in Yemen. And in Yemen, they have huge protests, and everybody came out, the Muslim Brotherhood, the Houthis, the Southern Socialists from AID and the Southern Transitional Council, they call themselves. They're backed by the UAE and are socialists kind of left over from the Soviet days. And all these different groups were coming together to protest to try to get rid of Saleh. But he wasn't going anywhere. But then somebody tried to kill him twice. And the second time it was with a bomb. I forgot what happened. I think it was a bombing both times. But the second time they got him and wounded him. And he had to go to Saudi Arabia to convalesce. And while he was gone, Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State, swooped in. And this is in early 2012. Hillary Clinton swooped in and insisted that whatever the people of Yemen have going on here, no. You are going to suffer the vice president under the old system, Mansour Hadi. He's coming to power, and there's nothing you can do about that. And we're going to hold a big election. They held a big election with one guy on the ballot. And even NPR News covered it. Like, you can pull up the website where you can see the ballot with one man. Just type in Mansour Hadi ballot NPR News, and it'll come up, I promise. And there's the ballot with one guy, one face, one oval. I don't think so. I don't think writing. You see Mickey Mouse down at the bottom, like
maybe
people do.
Kanye West finished second.
Yeah, people writing in Ron Paul.
Oh my God.
And so Hillary Clinton declared this was the advent of democracy. Did you find it?
Something about Hillary Clinton talking about democracy just never sits right with me.
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there. Yeah, Yemen election, one person, one vote, one candidate, February 2012.
Yeah.
Millions of people in Yemen. I like Yemen. I like saying it like the Comstock. Millions of people in Yemen turned out to vote Tuesday in an unusual presidential election. There was only one candidate and only one way to vote. Yes, that candidate, Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi, was the vice president under Ali Abdullah Saleh, who ruled Yemen for more than 3 decades. Saleh finally agreed to step down and transfer power to his vice president after nearly a year of mass protests against his rule. In the outgoing president's dusty hometown, about an hour's drive outside of the capital, Sana'a, and inside a school that served as a polling station, several pictures of Saleh preside over the proceedings as he has for 33 years in Yemen. People say that they are voting for the new Yemen, the new start, with the same fucking, okay, whatever. But it seems as if they are doing it because it's what Saleh wants them to do. I cried today as I voted, says Raisa Al-Sayani, as someone held a gun to her head behind her. We loved our president, but if he says his deputy is the best man for Yemen, then I know he knows better. I'm making up this last part. Then he is the best man for Yemen. That's, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it doesn't surprise me.
And the thing is, look, I'm not saying that all the protesters knew exactly what to do, but I am saying, as I show in the book, they did have processes and councils and committees that were, coming to agreement. They were trying to form a new government. They had the right to. America had no right to intervene in their process and to insist on propping up this guy over them the way that they did. And by the way, according to the rules of confirmation bias, when National Public Radio says something that agrees with me, then that means that even National Public Radio admits that I'm right. You see how that works? Especially when, and I know that's funny, but also especially when these are Democrat times. And they're confirming my bias, not Obama's. They are accusing Obama here, essentially. They're really implicating our government, the Democrat government, in what was happening there.
Right.
So when they're willing to make the Democrats look bad in that way, like arguing against interest, but hey, what are you going to do? It is the news and it runs anyway, then that's a bit more credible, because it's just as easy to turn around and go, come on, NPR, you wouldn't cite them for anything else, which is a good point, depending on the
Broken
on the
clock
story.
is right twice a day.
That's right. And you got to use your discernment. And then, but also I get to make a joke about confirmation bias that like, see, it fits with what I think. So I get to cite it, come on.
Yeah.
Anyways, here's the deal though. Mansur Sadi sucked at being a dictator, and he didn't have the talent, I guess, that Saleh had. And so I'll say that for a second. So he had cut all the gasoline rations for the poor. He had failed to stand for re-election as promised, and he had kind of taken a magic marker and drawn hard borders between the regions of the country as though they were states in a way that cut the Houthis off from the sea, from the Red Sea. So them's fighting words there, right? Like that's a declaration of war against them. So, but here's the ironical part is that it turns out that Abdullah Saleh, the former dictator, he was a Zaidi Shiite. Even though he wasn't a Houthi, he was a Shiite from the north. So those same Houthis that he'd been attacking and failing to defeat over and over again, he went up north and joined them. He took about half his army or more with him. And so now you had the former dictator of the country changed sides, became allies with his old enemies in the north. Now they marched together down back to Sana'a to take the capital city. Am I making sense?
Time is a flat circle.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so the world too, apparently.
Yeah.
They get to Sana'a in the end of 2014, and they kick Hadi out of power. He flees to Aden and then to a hotel in Saudi Arabia. I don't know if he ever came home again. So...
in a lot of ways, the world is like a fucked up. It's actually bloody and gross, but like the back office stuff is like a giant episode of Veep. It's not like that far off.
It is. It's pretty stupid.
It's
it
like,
really is.
Which dictator? Oh,
you'll like this part. So the Houthis come to power, and like I said, they're Shiites. But that means one thing about them. That means about them that Al-Qaeda thinks they should all be dead. Because to the Al-Qaeda guys,
Sunni Shiite. Yeah.
the only good, well, and not to every Sunni, but to the bin Ladenites, especially in a post-Iraq War II era, the only good Shiite is a dead Shiite. So America under Lloyd Austin, remember him, the Secretary of Defense under Joe Biden?
Terrific Secretary of Defense.
Yeah. Before that, he was the head of Central Command, 4-star general over there.
Oh.
And he had a program right when the Houthis took power in the end of 14 and into 15, where he was giving them intelligence to use to kill Al-Qaeda guys. Hey, you know how the Al-Qaeda guys like killing you? And the Shiites said, yeah. And he said, well, you want to kill them good? And they said, please. And he said, well, here's intelligence to use so that you can target them. And so we have this from the Wall Street Journal, January 2015. America gives support to Houthis. And that same month, a lady named Barbara Slavin, who used to write for UPI Press Service and is a member of the Atlantic Council, she wrote a story for Al Monitor about how General Michael Vickers, who is Deputy Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, came to the Atlantic Council and gave them a big briefing and told the whole story about how, guess what we're doing, everybody? We're giving intelligence to the Houthis to use to kill Al-Qaeda with.
It's like the Mujahideen all over again.
Well, in this case, it's backing the Shiites to kill the Mujahideen.
Yeah, exactly what I'm saying. Like the concept's the same. Like
sorta. But wait, because in 2 months, you found it? There you go.
Yeah, you're like the Billy Mays of like politics. But wait, there's more.
That's right. There's a big wrinkle in this story, which is this piece, as I mentioned.
Steve?
Just show us the headline there. There you go. So this is January, as I mentioned, January 2015, same as Barbara Slavin's piece in Al Monitor on the same topic, is from January of 2015. And the funny thing about that is that 2 months later, Barack Obama turned around and stabbed the Houthis in the back and took Al-Qaeda's side against them. That's like back in the Mujahideen all over again, my friend. And the reason why...
Wait, he took Al-Qaeda's side?
Yeah, dude. And the reason why he did is because that was what the Saudis and the UAE wanted. And by the Saudis and UAE, I mean the then brand new deputy crown prince and deputy defense minister, 29-year-old defense minister, Mohammed bin Salman. And so he needed to make a big name for himself by launching a war. And he teamed up with Mohammed bin Zayed in the UAE, and they launched this war. They came to Barack Obama and asked for permission and help, and he gave them the green light. Go.
What? Where did Israel stand on that?
I think, I'm sure they were for it, but as far as I know, they stayed out of that part of it.
You think they were for him taking Al-Qaeda's side against the Houthis?
Oh, sure. To the Israelis, the enemy are the Shiites. Anybody who's friends with Iran is their priority by far.
All right, that's interesting.
Yeah. And I got other examples, but that would be one.
We're going to talk Iran.
Yeah,
don't
sure.
worry, that's coming. We're working our way there. We're going across the map a little bit. I like that.
That's fine. Yeah, and I'm tired of telling the story in order. It's better this way.
Yeah, I told you we free will it here.
Yeah. So, MBS and MBZ come to Obama and they say, "Look, man, we want to bomb Yemen and get rid of the Houthis." Obama tells them, go ahead. And the New York Times has a piece where they admit all of this, and it's from Obama administration official sources. It's no, propaganda or whatever. It's them admitting basically. And if you want to look this up, the key words are, they knew the war would be long, bloody, and indecisive. And this was, and then they said, but they had to do this to placate the Saudis. And why do they have to placate the Saudis?
Yeah, why?
Because America, and this part is the stupidest part, America just signed the new nuclear deal, or they were just working on it. It was signed the summer of 15, but they were in the middle of working on
the
Iran nuclear deal. And now you might think, well, the Saudis would probably like the Iran nuclear deal since it vastly scaled back Iran's nuclear program and vastly expanded the inspections regime and absolutely guaranteed the lack of their progress toward a nuclear weapon, as long as that deal was in effect. Why would they be against that? Well, the reason they would be against that is because they were worried that Obama wanted to tilt back toward Iran. And, presidents can't help but say mean things about Saudi Arabia sometimes, and then they learn real quick that they better shut up and not do that because of all the economic interests at stake and all that. But the Saudis know that in the old days, America backed the Persians, right? Iran was our guy for a long time after World War II, right?
Yep.
So they know that that's an option. And I think that they believed a lot of the propaganda about Obama that, he loves the Ayatollahs so much and all that, which is not true. And I'm not defending Obama. Damn him. I'll send him to hell myself. But I'm just saying on this particular issue, and yes, I am that arrogant. I do that. No forgiveness here. On this particular
Scott
issue.
In here with Eric Prince at the same time. That needs to happen.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
That needs to happen. But please continue, Scott.
Yeah, sorry. Just on this thing, he was just trying to take war off the table. He was not trying to redirect American foreign policy toward the Shiites in the region.
Right.
Yeah. But that was the concern. And plus the ambition of MBS just to do something big. And by the way, as soon as he launched the war, what did he do? He seized the opportunity from that new stature to arrest his cousin, Mohammed bin Nayef, and make himself crown prince.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly right. So he did his coup and it worked out well for him. But that meant what? That meant America was now on the side of AQAP, and they were backed directly by the UAE on the ground. And for a time, first of all, I don't want to overstate things because I don't mean to and I don't need to, okay? We're talking about we took their side, right? So Michael Horton, no relation to me, expert on terrorism from the Jamestown Foundation, typically a hawkish group. He said, we're flying as Al-Qaeda's Air Force in Yemen. Now, that's a figure of speech, right? He's not saying that they are directing our planes around in the chain of command and this and that. We understand what he's saying there is that we are bombing their enemies. We've gone from telling the Houthis where to find al-Qaeda guys and kill them to now flying as air cover for the al-Qaeda guys making offensives on the ground against those same Houthis, okay? And that is treason. Call it lowercase t. I'm not saying like some of the right-wing hawks of the time would have said that, oh, it's because Barack Obama is a member of the Muslim Brotherhood and he's born in Kenya and all this crap. That's not what it is. It's that he's W. Bush. It's the same thing. It's the American foreign policy establishment. This is essentially how they do business. And in other words, the redirection started, we're telling it out of order, but the redirection started under Bush, where essentially like 9/11 never happened, like the Sunni insurgency in Iraq War II never happened. And we like these guys. As long as they're killing Serbs and Russians and Shiites, we use the Bin Ladenites. And so in this case, we got these Shiites. They're not anything like, Iran's cat's paws, like total agents or whatever. They just happen to be Shiites too. Mm-hmm. But they're Zaidi Shiites, which is different than the 12er different tradition in Shia Islam. So there's no like direct control. In fact, as Obama himself admitted on video, in fact, in his interview with Thomas Friedman, that he knows for a fact Iran told the Houthis not to take the capital city because the Saudis are going to freak out and bomb you. Don't do it. It's a bridge too far, man. And they ignored Iran and did it anyway. Yeah. So now this goes on. Now, the problem is this. Saudi and UAE can't do any of this without America, right? So Obama still has 2 years left in his presidency at this point. We already had sold them all the F-15s and F-16s that they're using for the thing. And also they have British tornadoes and typhoons, I guess. But then we're selling them all the bombs. And then plus our contractors are over there doing all the care and feeding of the planes, all the maintenance and everything. They're doing all the logistics, all the air traffic control and everything to run the war. Our military officers and civilians, as well as, civilian DOD employees, as well as contractors. And they're running the whole thing. And they even got American Boeing refueling tankers, refueling the fighter jets, and allowing the UAE and the Saudis to loiter, essentially just picking targets from the air, meaning bombing innocent people. They have no idea what they're bombing, and just bombing for fun. And they bomb the crap out of them. And here's the thing about this is the Saudi way of war, the Americans, they pretend like this. Oh, and I left out our Navy was enforcing the blockade the whole time from outside. Yeah, absolutely. So this is the American Saudi war. Absolutely. Right there. Okay. Yes, and enforcing the Saudis' rule on total blockade against Yemen. So now it's all deniable, right? It's like a lynch mob. Well, we're all murdering the guy a little bit, and so nobody's truly responsible kind of thing. So America is doing all these things to simply assist our friends, the Saudis, in the thing. That's right. We're here to help them.
Jamal Khashoggi, I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Never heard of him.
That's right. We're going to make 1 million more now.
That's right.
Right. And so, but then if the Saudis want to wage war like utter barbarians, well, listen, I mean, the Saudis, that's their problem, and they're going to have to work that out in their court system. And yeah, right. So we're deniable, even though none of this could happen without the USA. And then, but so the Saudi way of war was to bomb all the farms, kill the horses in their stables, bomb all the fishermen's boats, bomb all the irrigation ditches, try to, use napalm and whatever, set the crops on fire, bomb the marketplaces and the factories. There was like a potato chip factory they bomb, and like anything where any food creation or distribution around the country is the main target, to starve the population of the country, to inflict collective punishment on them in that Eastern Oriental non-American way of war, which I'm not saying the American way of war is a whole hell of a lot better because we're the ones doing it. But I'm just saying this is not what even the U.S. Air Force would do if it was just their war. They would do it differently than this. You'd like to think anyway, maybe when nobody's looking. But anyway, so that was how they did it. And something like 300,000 people were killed. It must have been much more than that if you count all the excess death rate and all that.
300,000 people.
Yeah, because
over how long?
Because, see, that was the deal. When Donald Trump came in his first term, he kept this war on autopilot for his entire 4 years long and didn't do a thing to stop it. And in fact, when the Congress passed war powers resolutions to force him to stop, he vetoed it twice. And I got to tell you about that there is no Yemen lobby in America. There ain't no Shiite lobby in America.
I thought there was a YPAC. I was pretty sure.
Yeah,
There's
not
a Ron's
one
Coffee
iota.
right down the street. They just opened up. It's fine timing, if I might say.
They got
any coffee.
That's some really good coffee.
Oh, it's fucking great, bro. I'm a big fan. I didn't know you guys were still around. I'm happy you're here.
But no, it really was just the Quakers and the hippies and the libertarians who raised hell. It was just well-meaning people. I mean, there were some Yemeni Americans, but there are no groups with money.
Yes.
No groups with resources, right? Yeah. Other than just trying hard. And it worked and got the resolutions passed twice. And Trump vetoed them twice. And I know this is the New York Times, but it was his own guy, Pete Navarro, his trade representative, who explained all this in an interview with the New York Times, that the reason that they kept the war going was so that they could keep funneling money to Raytheon. The war was important for Raytheon. They were making a lot of money off of those bombs.
Why would Donald Trump... All right, so here's the question, because obviously this is true. This is inarguable, what you're saying. Why is he doing that when every time he's campaigned since 2015, it's on, we're in too many wars, it's endless wars, we got to stop the wars. And yet when it comes down to it, even if this isn't a war where we have a ton of our boots on the ground or something like that, he is openly subverting that policy idea right in our face.
Well, it's different audiences. I mean, they always say no new wars because, he did bomb Afghanistan for 4 years. He did bomb Yemen for 4 years. He did bomb Iraq and Syria for a year. And, he killed a hell of a lot of people. Bombed Somalia the whole time he was in power too. But hey, that was W. Bush started that one. So, you know what I mean? That's like a technicality in that way. But see, running overall on, I'm not sending the 3rd Infantry Division in there the way W. Bush did, right? A drone war here, a proxy war there, air wars here, B-1 bombers and drones. That's different. Even when he thought he did keep the war going in Afghanistan for all 4 years, but you had a few Marines, I think hundreds, not thousands. I could be wrong about that. I'm pretty sure if it was thousands, it was very low thousands of Marines down in Helmand. And then you had the Green Berets in the Nangarhar province in the low hundreds max, right? Special forces. So that was almost all the ground fighting that was happening in the Trump years. But he bombed the crap out of them the whole time. And so on the campaign trail, it sounds good to say, I'm Mr. Peace guy. That's what every president says, except Joe Biden. But W. Bush and Barack Obama and Donald Trump.
Joe forgot
and
his line.
Everybody, Joe, exactly. He was like, no, we're going to kill him is what we're going to do. You heard me. We're going to look the fuck out.
You know the thing.
And he won on that, by the way, remember. People are like, fuck it. We all know we're going to be at war anyway. We might as well. This guy, like George Carlin has said about Bill Clinton, I'm completely full of shit. Hey, at least he's honest.
He is honest.
But so the reason why, and then, so look, it's good to say to the voters, no more of this W. Bush stuff, right? Nobody wants that. But it's good to say to Raytheon, oh, you like money? I got money for you.
Need the stock market.
But overall, does the society rebel against that and say, what do you mean you're bombing Yemen? Right? They don't know. They're not as engaged on that narrow issue. You know what I mean? And so it sucks because, as I joke in my first book about Afghanistan is probably the least supported and least opposed war in American history.
Least supported and all right, let me ask this. Afghanistan right away in 2001 or Afghanistan?
No, I mean overall. But even by by the end of the Bush years, certainly into the Obama years.
I agree completely with your statement.
It was super majority, 60, 70% said we should have never fought it at all, right? That kind of thing. I was a super majority oppose it. But then they would ask people, well, what's your biggest concern for what America is dealing with? A kind of open-ended question. And Afghanistan wouldn't even be in the top 30. Right?
That's right.
So it's like, oh yeah, we're all against that, but far away, and so who cares, really?
Scott, you know what's crazy, dude? I've had so many tier 1 guys in here, be it Navy SEALs, SEAL Team 6 guys, Army Rangers, Delta guys, talk about and give an oral history in here of like Afghanistan and particularly say 07 to like 2014, no one remembers that because it was, as you just said, not even a top 30 issue for a lot of people, but shit was going down every day. Yeah. And it was a war where, and we can talk about this because I'd love your thoughts, but like 9/11 happens. Okay, Taliban is harboring Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda, crashed into the building, so we're going to go there and fight them. Fine. But then the puck immediately moved to, no, let's go to Iraq, which had nothing. I'm not saying Saddam Hussein was a good guy. He was a bad guy. But like had nothing to do with 9/11, had nothing to do with our problems responding to that. Correct. And so all the resources come out of Afghanistan and go into Iraq. And then you wonder why, over the next 18, 19 years, the Taliban's able to slowly like kind of spread like a disease back all over the country. Is that a fair way to look at it?
You're close. I mean, my argument would be that they should have never done a regime change in Afghanistan at all. And I think that the argument that the diversion of resources led to a less effective Afghan war is essentially a red herring. Because if you put in more troops, it just would have made matters worse. The thing is about insurgency like this is they're what my friend Bill Bupert is an expert on the bankruptcy of counterinsurgency doctrine. And he explains that these groups are anti-fragile, meaning when you hit them, they get stronger, right? The more you go to war against these people, the more people you're driving into the insurgency because they're basically just citizen militias. So when the Americans come out to the countryside, then people grab their rifles and become the enemy, where before they were just standing there. And so it really was a whole self-fulfilling thing. Afghanistan is the size of Texas, but it's got deserts like California and mountains like Colorado. That's right. And it's badlands inhabited by wild men who like to fight. And they're not giving in to a foreign occupation any more than your community or my community would give in to foreign never have troops. Yeah.
Throughout world history.
So the thing is, they talk about keeping the Taliban out or whatever. No offense, but just like the way you phrased the question there is the thing is the Taliban, all that meant is just another term at that time, certainly, for Pashtun resistance. That was it. The people from the south and the east of the country who had oftentimes connections with these loose networks of the former regime, but most often were just the locals. Right. The Taliban meant anyone who resists us. And then so the whole thing became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I've just been doing this long enough. I covered it the whole time, all the way through. And then so by the time Obama did the big escalation in Afghanistan in 2009, me and all of my experts were already on the record saying, not only is this not going to work, it's going to make matters worse. Yep. And they're just going to cause suicide bombings. You're going to cause foreign fighters to come here and expand the war. You're going to cause more Afghans to join the insurgency, and then you're going to lose anyway. And, I said for the first time, and I can prove it's in the transcripts and on audio, I said for the first time in 2008 that when America leaves Afghanistan, the Taliban are going to walk right into Kabul like it's the fall of Saigon, but probably not even fighting. They're just going to walk right in. Because the whole thing that we had tried to do there was a bunch of crap. It could only be held up, right? It's like a zombie company propped up by government financial injections or whatever. There's a group of people who had no natural authority, the Northern Alliance essentially propped up. Maybe they would have had some authority in their own districts if they tried to leave it at that. But America was essentially trying to foist a coalition of the Tajiks, Uzbeks, and Hazaras, who were about 20% each, onto the plurality Pashtun population of 40% in the south of the country. And
good luck.
A country whose borders were drawn by the Americans, right? By the British in the 19th century is how they've been fought. So the people from the north who speak Urdu can't communicate with the people from, and it's like probably even more vast than the difference between, like English speakers and Spanish speakers in Texas. There's some overlap there. You know what I mean? There's like a severe lack of overlap. These people don't share a country, a culture, a civilization at all. Right. The Urdu speakers are like, our soldiers are going, hey, translate for me. And the translator's like, I don't speak Pashto. Like we're in a different country when we're down south here.
Yes.
This is So the whole thing was completely stupid and bankrupt and wrong. And in fact, as I make the case in the book, the only reason they took the war to the Taliban and kept that war going and came up with all this crap about rebuilding the country and saving women's rights and all of this stuff was just so they could prolong the war long enough to spread it into Iraq. Because in order to invade Iraq, it was going to be a lot different than just parachuting guys in the way they were able to do in Afghanistan. In Iraq, we're going to have to build up a massive force in Kuwait, and they hoped Turkey, and that was going to take a year and a half. So they needed.
And they had that plan. There's transcripts and records that on the night of September 11th, the administration was discussing Iraq.
Absolutely. So we have in writing, you can see the handwriting and the typewritten memo of Donald Rumsfeld to Stephen Cambone, who was the Deputy Secretary of Defense for Intelligence. And Donald Rumsfeld on the afternoon of September 11th, before the sun is even down, before anyone's really even sure the attack is over, right? Donald Rumsfeld is saying, sweep it all up, things related and not. Contact Paul Wolfowitz for Deputy Defense Secretary Paul Wolfowitz for connections between Saddam Hussein and OBL.
That's who I would have contacted too.
Excellent choice. He's the one who knows.
Yeah.
And then, Richard Clark says that day at the White House as well, that they were running around talking about, we got to find a way to connect this to Iraq. And especially Wolfowitz was saying, we got to connect this to Iraq. And the guys who knew better were like, come on. There was a whole little cottage industry of Washington, D.C. conspiracy theorists who had been trying to pin al-Qaeda on Saddam Hussein for 10 years.
Yeah, and he was
led by Lori Milroy.
Guys.
That's right. Saddam Hussein was terrified of the bin Ladenites.
Yeah.
He had no business with them whatsoever. But they had this lie. There was this lady named Lori Milroy who wrote a book called Saddam Hussein's Unfinished War with the United States. And the same lady, Judy Miller, who's famous for lying us into war with Iraq with all the WMD stuff. Yeah. She ended up, before that, she was pals with Lori Milroy. And I think Lynn Cheney wrote the foreword to their book and all this stuff. And the whole point was they had tried to claim that Ramzi Youssef, who cooked the bomb for the first World Trade Center bombing and whose uncle was the ringleader of the September 11th attack, that he was actually not really Ramzi Youssef. He was an Iraqi Mukhabarat agent who murdered Ramzi Youssef and stole his identity.
Oh, come on.
And that's the proof that Saddam Hussein is behind Osama bin Laden and all of the al-Qaeda war against the United States. And blamed him for the Oklahoma City bombing, which was in fact a bunch of neo-Nazi FBI informants who did that, not Arabs at all. And blamed him for everything that they could under the sun, including the guy who shot up CIA headquarters, the left turn lane out front of CIA headquarters in 1993, tried to blame that on Saddam Hussein. And so Wolfowitz was like part of this clique. This is like the kooks from the American Enterprise Institute, the neoconservative faction, trying to make this connection, not giving a damn what the truth was.
Who I know you. This is a good tangent to go into because I know you know this history extremely well. Everyone on every platform, when we're talking about these things, at some point in some context, the neocon clique gets thrown around as the term. Yeah. And I think most people out there kind of know what it is. But for the people who are like, it's like when people throw around the term postmodernist, like I kind of get it, but like what is this? How far does it go back? Who are these people? What are their motivations? How would you define that as someone who's paid attention that closely for probably 30 years?
Yeah. Okay. Broadly speaking, they're ex-Trotskyites and Cold War Democrats who moved right and became Reaganites in reaction to essentially the new left hippie movement of the late 60s. They were, what's important about them being Trotskyites is they were communists, but they were like right-wing communists. Well, it depends. No, actually, it depends on how you really define that. Maybe you flip that around. Stalin's, I should take that back and strike that and reverse it. Stalin's doctrine, as murderous as it was communism in one country. Forget all this world revolution. It's a big world, man, and we can't afford all that. Let's chew what we've bitten off here.
Right.
Trotsky said, no, you got to overthrow the whole planet because as long as the capitalist countries remain, they'll destroy the communist ones by, they'll attack them and whatever. So, and this whole doctrine of world revolution. But Stalin had won the faction fight after Lenin died, took control of the place, and had exiled Trotsky out of there. So Trotsky had come to the United States and had some followers here for a while and had traveled around the Americas or wherever until eventually a Stalinist assassin killed him down in Mexico. But so in the days after the Cold War, there had been all kinds of different communists sort of in the 20s and 30s in America. Not that many, but different factions of them and whatever. But after World War II, it was very convenient for these Trotskyites to be big supporters of the Cold War because it proved that they were sorry that they had ever been commies. And it proved, and after all, they were Americans, not Russians, right? And they hated the Stalinists, right? And so they made a great fit for the new Cold Warriors.
Enemy of my enemy is
right.
my friend.
That's right. So a lot of the people who had been, what had been considered the right was essentially everybody who hated FDR and wanted to stay out of World War II. And that was not uniformly kind of known as the same thing as the conservatives. There were other factions, including the libertarians and others. But after World War II, it really became the mission of William F. Buckley, especially, to make the right synonymous with conservatism, and conservatism synonymous with support for the Cold War against the commies. That was mission number one of the conservative movement and therefore of the National Review. But that meant then that all of the old right non-interventionists had to be purged. And famously, he purged out the avowed racists and he purged out the Ayn Randians but less well known was he purged out all the libertarians and essentially anyone who wouldn't toe the line. But then that left the staff of the National Review was a bunch of ex-trots.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.